Now, many people might know him as the voice of the La Liga, but Gerry Armstrong is now working on something a bit bizarre, transfer videos. Gerry, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks, Enda.
So talk us through this company you're now working for as a producer. You are involved in making transfer videos, which many people might see going across social media for the likes of Manchester United, for the likes of Liverpool. Mob Films is the name of the company.
Yeah, Mob Ireland. And basically we do films, but most of the stuff we do is advertisements and, commercials. And all these football clubs all need to promote their players on the YouTube and on different media sources, Instagram. So they put together packages, but it's not just clubs in here in England. Obviously, it's clubs all over England. It's clubs in Juventus, obviously in Italy. They do it all over, and they cover commercials. They cover big car companies, lots of different. It's very good quality as well, and it's something obviously that I'm very interested in. I see some cracking ones with Ronaldo, and I've saw the latest one with Bruno Fernandes coming over for Manchester United. That was excellent as well.
And football's changed quite a bit since your day, Gerry.
It has. Everything's changed a lot since my day, to be honest, and the whole face of football. And, it's great that so many people are earning really good money out of it. But I just worry sometimes we've got to keep a level on it and try and cap wages and stop it going out of all proportion.
What would Gerry Armstrong's transfer video look like?
Basically, my strengths were my power and my pace, and somebody who was very committed to whoever he was playing for. I played for plenty of clubs. I had plenty of teams, obviously. I played for Spurs and I played for Watford, and then I went to Spain and played for Real Mallorca and came back and played for West Bromwich Albion and Brighton. But those are just a few of the clubs I played for. I was fortunate enough to play for probably 10, 11 different clubs over a 21, 22-year career. So I cannot complain.
So, as I said at the start of this, you are what many people would remember as the voice of Sky Sports La Liga. Sky Sports no longer have the rights for the competition, as we all know now.
That's right.
But you've covered games from Clásicos down the years to some cracking games with the likes of Rivaldo, Ronaldo, Ronaldinho. The names, the list, it goes on and on. But
at the start of my career with the La Liga, the stars were all different. I've watched all the eras change, and if you go back to 1996, 97, 98, when we first got on board with La Liga, and Sky were actually the team that brought me in to do that. There was lots of names like Rivaldo. I don't know if you remember him, the left-footed player who played for Deportivo La Coruña, the Brazilian. Sweet left foot, and obviously he went on and played for a lot of other clubs, but he was sensational. He had great skill and quality and a fantastic finisher. But he was one of the stars, and there was Russian stars like Alexander Mostafoy, who was very technically gifted, and Valery Karpin, the right winger, another one. And these were all the players I loved to watch over the first 4 or 5 years. But then at Real Madrid, the star striker then was Raul. Raul was a poacher. He scored goals. And then, of course, Fernando Hierro was the centre-half, but he was also captain of Spain, and he scored a lot of goals because he took penalty kicks and free kicks. And, it was Spanish football was totally distinct. It was different to what you were getting in the English league. And then as the years progressed, the new stars came in and different names. And then, of course, Lionel Messi is the one that's came in over the last 10, 15 years, and he's been sensational. But then if you look at the goal scorers, you've had Ronaldo, and you've had two Ronaldos, Brazilian Ronaldo and then the Portuguese Ronaldo, and the Brazilian Ronaldo was a fantastic finisher as well. So I watched all these players playing and performing week in, week out, and it was just a joy to watch.
What's interesting about it is that many people know Barcelona as this giant club that have been competing with Real Madrid forever, but that hasn't really been the case. Before Cruyff came in and changed them in the 90s, they were really struggling along there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Real Madrid dominated right through the 60s, not just in terms of winning the La Liga title every year, but, the Champions League. They won 4, 5, 6 in a row, and they were just outstanding. And they were the biggest club in the world. But then to get on a par with them, you have to have a complete revolution. And Cruyff came in and changed a lot of football. And, when you see the the fans in Barcelona, and they say "Más que un club," which means more than just a club. And the fans are actually the owners of the club as well, and they dictate how the club plays and the style of football. And the one thing that I love about Real Madrid and Barcelona, they both have this philosophy: if they score 2 goals, we're going to score 3. And if they score 3 goals, we're going to score 4. So then you get fantastic games, and you get plenty of entertainment, lots of opportunities, which is what football's all about. You don't want to watch a 0-0 draw. You want to watch goals, and that's the beauty for me.
It's interesting in Ireland, especially from the fact that the Premier League probably dominates the coverage that it gets. In the 90s, Serie A would have been quite big in Ireland because of Channel 4 showing the games. And I feel like Sky Sports coming in and taking the La Liga all through the noughties, there's some sort of romanticising about the La Liga the same way as they did for the Serie A in the 90s.
Yeah, the Serie A was fantastic, watching Inter Milan and Juventus competing, and AC Milan. It was a fantastic league, and it was a different type of league. It was quite a very hard league. I remember playing, and watching the Italian team winning the World Cup in 1982, and they had a real solidness about them. They were very well organised defensively. They never conceded many goals, but they had flair as well. They had the flair players who would come in and do their part. But I've seen it change a lot. I mean, in the last 5, 6, 7 years for me, you've watched what Pep Guardiola's done in terms of, the first player to get the ball is the goalkeeper, and he has to have it at his feet, and he has to pass it out from the back, and you play from the back. So you see the face of football changing, and he had that style of football that he had at Barcelona, and he took it for 2, 3, 4 years, and then he moved on, and he went to Germany, and then he took it to Manchester City. And they've all had to follow suit, to copy, and say, well, look, this is the way they play now. Have the extra man as the goalkeeper at the back, but he has to be good with his feet. So that has been passed on. And I've seen a lot of things changing, but it's, as long as it's entertaining for the football fans, I know they push the boundaries trying to improve the standard of refereeing and to get the decisions right. And they brought in the VAR, and the VAR still has a lot of problems with it. Mm-hmm. But hopefully it's going to be a tool that the fans can enjoy. I don't like the game being stopped for too long. I don't want it interfering with referees' decisions. I think he has to be the man that makes the final decision rather than somebody up on a screen. But if he can help the referee and assist the referee in different ways. So I can see lots of things that are changing in the game. Sometimes my old boss at Sky, Andy Melvin, used to say, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So sometimes you have to think, is that really going to make the game better, and is it going to make football better? Yeah. So I would ask that question, and the people who run the leagues and the associations who make those decisions, I think they have to think hard and long before they make the decisions at the end of the day.
Well, you mentioned entertainment there, Gerry, and before we came on the show, I asked you to pick out 3 of your favourite games. I might start off in chronological order because you mentioned Pep Guardiola there. We're going to start with a game where he hasn't yet taken the reins at Barcelona. Barcelona 3, Real Madrid 3 in 2007. Now, when I was looking up some of the reports, and I'm just going to read out some of the report that Sid Lowe did at the time, and the title is Messi Magic Lifts Fallen Giants. Now, Messi is 19 years old at this stage. Frank Rijkaard's last game in charge, last Clásico in charge, and Messi scores a hat-trick to bring the game to a draw.
Yeah, I mean, I watched this young man develop, and I always thought if George Best had been alive watching Messi, he would have been so thrilled to see somebody like him who had that ability, who was getting kicked but kept going, and he was something special. And he was small, but he had this brilliant balance, and he scored goals. But he didn't just score goals; he created goals. And I've seen this young man develop and become the best player in the world for me over the last 10, 15 years. And I've seen everybody talk about his ability as a footballer and as a goal scorer. But to score 3 goals in a Clásico at 19, that was something else. And it was a fantastic Clásico because it was end-to-end stuff. And, of course, we're in the stadium sitting on the halfway line and watching the goals fly in and watching this sensational 19-year-old doing what he did. And little did we know that was only the tip of the iceberg, and he's entertained us for the last 13 or 14 years. And long may it continue for me.
Was that sort of the sliding doors moment for Lionel Messi in terms of the way he's perceived in Spain? Because I know he was a childhood superstar anyway from the age of 16, 17, but to score a hat-trick in the Clásico, that must have been just a completely game-changing moment for him.
Absolutely, but you see, they have all these trials and tribulations that they have to go through. At La Masia, when they're through the academy and they're learning all their skills and techniques, and he came in the scene, and the big star then at Barcelona was Ronaldinho, and Ronaldinho was the star, but Ronaldinho's career was sort of coming towards an end, and Messi's was only just starting, but he wanted to latch on and go out with Ronaldinho, and I think Pep Guardiola, who was the reserve team manager at the time, sort of said, listen, you've got to think what you want for your future and guide him in the right direction. And that's great to see that someone like Pep Guardiola, who's an ex-player, who was managing the reserves then and wasn't a big name as a manager. He hadn't really made his mark, but he was given guidance to what he saw as potentially the best player in the world. And he helped him in those early years to get him on the straight and narrow and concentrate on his football. And we've all seen, everybody's seen what he can produce and how brilliant he's been for football. So I was pleased to see things like that happening, and I was privileged to be part of it.
Yeah, and I said it was a sliding doors moment for Messi. In terms of La Liga, it was almost the end of the way that season ended was almost like a sliding doors moment, because Real Madrid went on to win 10 out of 12 games, and they ended up finishing joint on top with 76 points. But because they won in the Bernabeu earlier in the year, they won the title. After this season, Pep Guardiola takes over, and that is when things start to change for Barcelona.
Yeah, but see, people, I don't know if you can remember. I remember his first game in charge, and it was against not such a big team at, I think it was either away from home or it was. They had one game away from home and one game at home, and they were brilliant in both games, had loads of possession, but just didn't put the ball in the back of the net. So they lost the first game 1-0, and in the second game, I think it was just home at the Nou Camp, they drew 1-1 against like Numancia or something like that, one of the lower division clubs. But the press were all going, he's no good. He's not going to be a good manager. And that's the way it is. You don't get more than 2, 3, 4 games at those clubs that show how good you are before the fans start, hold on, he's not good enough. We can't be losing matches to teams like that. We can't be drawing and dropping points. And then he went on a run. I think his next 11, 12, 13 games undefeated, and they went straight to the top of the table. And his brand of football then became the way forward, and that was the template for a lot of other clubs in Spain and Europe to follow suit.
Yeah, and it was almost like Cruyff football 2.0, getting the ball down, holding possession, and many people would consider Pep Guardiola's team, when they reached their peak eventually around 2012, to be the greatest football team to ever grace a pitch.
Well, I mean, I watched them play Manchester United at Wembley in the Champions League final, and Barcelona had beaten Man United the year before, a couple of years before, and afterwards it was unbelievable. Andy Roxburgh, I was chatting to him, and he said he was working with UEFA, and he said to me, unbelievable. He said, Messi and Iniesta and Xavi exchanged nearly 600 passes between them in that match. And I said, that's what they do every game I watch them in La Liga. They keep the ball, even if it's one touch, they have little triangles, but it's controlling the game and frustrating the opposition, and having the ability to do that and working a system and enjoying the system and being still hungry at their ages. The problem, once you've won the title 3, 4, 5 years in a row, is how do you keep that hunger there? How do you get the enthusiasm? It's crazy, but that was the sort of thing I was watching, and it was just, again, it was a privilege for me to be part of it and watch the development of the football and the stars. And yes, it was just sensational to watch. Loved watching them on the park. Xavi, another one, passing in the ball, but they had everybody was a star. Dani Alves was supposed to be a right back, but he was like a right winger. He just kept pushing on and putting in crosses, and they enjoyed their football so much, which is what it should be. Players should go out on the pitch, not thinking I'm under pressure here, but thinking let's go out and enjoy ourselves and score some goals and win a match.
Yeah, and most people, especially in Ireland or England, would remember this team for their exploits in Europe, but they really did dominate domestically as well. And it was from this stretch on until Mourinho, I think, took over in Real Madrid before Real Madrid won a domestic title again, which in Spanish terms is absolutely unheard of.
Yeah, but Barcelona had to change things, and they got put together a group of players, and La Masia played a big part in that. You know, a lot of the players like Gerard Piqué and Andres Iniesta, Xavi, Messi, they all came through the ranks. But in the last 5 or 6 years, there's not so many players have come through La Masia, and that's a big problem for Barcelona for the future. So they're having to spend money. They're having to spend money on a lot of the new stars they're bringing in.
Well, in 2014 is when we're going to pick up again. Again, we're going to go for a Clásico, one of your favourite ones. And again, Lionel Messi scores a hat-trick.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? It was him, but Ronaldo as well. You know, Ronaldo was there, and Ronaldo could score goals. Ronaldo, for me, wasn't as good a player as Messi, but wow, you won't find many better goal scorers. You know, his skill and his art was putting the ball in the back of the net, Ronaldo, and he was brilliant, you know, and watching him play, and I think it was 4-3, it finished, it was just a fantastic game to watch, and Messi, once again, got himself a hat-trick, and every year it was like, what's the little man going to come up with this year? And he never failed to surprise, he always delivered.
Yeah, and I think he went joint second in the all-time La Liga scorers in that game, and that was in 2014. We're now in 2020. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I can imagine he's well in front at this stage. What was the dynamic between Messi and Ronaldo like in Spain? Because very much so in England and in the Irish press, it was very much Ronaldo versus Messi. These two guys don't get on, they don't like each other. Was that the case, or was that more of a sort of a made-up story to add to the drama of the league?
I think a lot of it was made up, but there was obviously rivalry. When you're who's the top player in the world, a lot of people still think it's Ronaldo. A lot of people who are maybe Real Madrid fans would say it's Ronaldo, but if you're a Barcelona fan, they'll say it's Messi. But both of them were so unique in what they could do and the goals they scored. You know, Messi and Ronaldo, like 560 games and 555 goals, something like that. You know, it's like an average of goal a game. You know, and I think Ronaldo at one stage was better than a goal a game. I think he was scoring like 560 goals in less games. Mm-hmm. So it was crazy. But there was a rivalry. The press did milk it to a certain extent, but you have to look at the other quality players that was on the pitch. You know, it wasn't just all about Messi and Ronaldo. There was fantastic players at both sides who contributed to it. They were just the star names that people threw in because you knew if there was going to be goals scored, they were undoubtedly going to be involved in the goals, either creating or scoring them.
Yeah, and just sticking to the subject of rivalries, before we get to your last game that you picked out, there are quite a few rivalries in the La Liga. The Bilbao versus Sociedad, the Basque region, that's more of a political thing. Sevilla, you have Betis. Barcelona, you have Real Madrid. What's interesting about
Barcelona, you've got Espanyol. I mean, that's a big rivalry. Mm-hmm. I've seen Espanyol spoil the dishes for Barcelona on lots of occasions where they would turn up, even though there's maybe 25 points between the two, but because it's local rivalry between Espanyol and Barcelona, the games are fantastic. We've had the same with Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid. Mm-hmm. You know, again, the rivalry's fantastic, but the people talk about the Clásico, and it is a Clásico between Barcelona and Real Madrid. But see, for me, the derby that has all the passion for me is the Seville derby. And that's the last game I picked, which was, Seville against Real Betis 2 years ago. And it was one of my last games on La Liga. And there was a goal in the first minute against the run of play. Ruiz with his left foot, comes inside left foot and bangs it in the top left-hand corner. And I thought, this is great. And then it was a shot each end. Every 60 seconds, somebody went forward and had a shot, and then it went up the other end. And it went 1-0, 1-1. 2-1, 2-2, and it just continued to go like that. And we ended up with an 8-goal thriller with Real Betis winning 5-3 away at Seville. Yeah. You know, those are the sort of games for me with the passion between the two clubs in Seville. I mean, they talk about those games for the whole season until the following year.
Well, what's interesting about them is, for example, in England, most of the rivalries are built up because of they're in the same city or they're the two best teams in the league. But when it comes to Spanish rivalries, there's a real political aspect to it, and the clues in the name. You have Real Betis, and then you have Sevilla.
Yeah, Royal.
So you have Royal. Any team with Royal is going to be the bad guys in any scenario if you're in Spain. Yeah.
Well, the Real Betis were the lesser team. They were sort of the poor team in Seville. Seville were the classical team. They were the team with all the skill and the talent, and they would look upon themselves as the main teams. Atletico Madrid, if you look at Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid again, Royal. Atletico came from, originally they were called Atletico Mineiro, which was Aviación, which is an Air Force team back in the 40s, and then they changed it to Atletico Madrid. So there's different rivalries, but it's still just as much passion, and as long as you've got the entertainment and the goals, you can't go wrong.
A couple of things just before we finish up, Gerry. I wanted to ask you about the perception of the La Liga in comparison to the likes of the Premier League. So many people compare the likes of Real Madrid to Man City and the bigger sides, but how do the smaller sides compare to the smaller sides in the Premier League? So, for example, would there be much of a difference between the likes of Leganés, Levante, Alaves compared to your Bournemouth or your Newcastles of the Premier League?
Yeah, there's similarities because obviously their budgets are different. But I will go to Getafe. Look at Getafe this season. That's supposedly the third team in Madrid. They're into the last 16 in the UEFA Europa League, and they're pushing for top four. Mm-hmm. They've been in and out of the top four all season. They're having a wonderful season, and yet they don't have the revenue that the Barcelonas, the Atletico Madrids, the Sevillas, the Valencias, and co. They don't have that revenue. So there's great stories in terms of having a manager who's got the insight that can pick players up at the right price and make them part of a team that he's evolving.
And a couple of more things that I wanted to touch on was just, you would have been involved in the league while the likes of David Beckham was there, while Michael Owen was there.
Yes.
What was the perception in Spain in terms of, would you have come across them while they were players, and how were they settling in themselves?
Yeah, I spoke to David and Michael regularly when they were obviously playing for Real Madrid, and I remember we were playing them in England. England was playing Northern Ireland, and I was assistant manager in Northern Ireland. We met them at Old Trafford before a game, and I was asking them about something that was happening at Real Madrid. And I remember Michael saying to me, "You usually know before we do what's going on at our club." And that's the way the press worked. The press were crazy in terms of if they could create stories as well as obviously talk about them and promote them. Mm-hmm. But they loved the fact that it was free-flowing football. The entertainment value was great. It's different. I felt it was different when I went from obviously playing First Division football, which is in the top flight in England, and then going to Spain. I worked out there that there was a lot more ability and skill and technique involved in Spain. And sometimes I could see players at the back playing in Spain who were probably more technical and better gifted than some of the midfield players and the attacking players. Yeah. So it was a different type of football, but it was all about entertainment. It's all about skill and technique. I think in the 80s, certainly in the 70s and the 80s, the British teams were very physically strong and athletic, but then the technique that the Spaniards came up with overshadowed all of that because they started winning on a regular basis. And now you see a big influx of Spanish players and other players from France and Germany coming into the Premier League because there's a lot of money there and it's well advertised. But the star players go where the money goes, generally.
Why hasn't the Spanish media or the Spanish public in general taken to Gareth Bale?
I don't know totally. I think Gareth Bale's still a fabulous player, and if I was picking the teams, I'd be picking him virtually every week unless he was injured because he's got so much to offer. But I think the fact that it took him so long to learn Spanish and to develop and get yourself in with the players. I love the fact that you could go and have a beer with the lads afterwards, go and have some tapas. I like part of the camaraderie side of it. He could be a quieter type of a character who just decides, look, I'm happy training and then going home and doing my own thing. Every player is different. And one of the advices I gave to him and to, obviously, to Michael Owen and David Beckham when they came was, learn the language, get involved in the culture, and that will help you to settle down. And the players will embrace you because you're trying to learn their language. You've got to remember you're the guest that's coming to their country, not the other way around.
Yeah. And just finally, Gerry, do you think the La Liga is past its golden era at the minute? Because
there is a golden era, and I see it changing because a lot of the stars are being exported out. But it's not just that; the managers have gone out as well. I look at a lot of the star managers in La Liga who are now obviously over in England. But I see an aging team at Barcelona, and I see an aging team at Real Madrid. I think Real Madrid have got some very good young players coming through. Young Vinicius, who's the youngest player to score, and in the derby, and he's beaten Messi's record. But there's an involvement there, and I think Barcelona really need to bring some star players through quickly in the near future.
Can we see Real Madrid probably dominate in the next couple of years, because Messi is on the decline? He doesn't have as many years left, and I suppose in a weird way, losing Ronaldo to Juventus might actually help Real Madrid in the long term, because they've had to deal earlier with the loss of a player who's getting you 50 goals a game. 50 goals
that's
a year,
a good point, Emma. Yeah, that's a good point, and I do agree on that. And I think they have brought in some really good young stars. I think they have probably a stronger squad for me, definitely for the future. I think Busquets and Piqué and Messi are all the wrong age now. They're getting to a stage of their careers, and Messi didn't really play that well for me at the weekend in the Clásico, and they had a couple of half chances in the first half, and then second half Real Madrid went on to win it fairly comfortably in the end. So I think the power struggle that always goes on every year, at this present time, Real Madrid look slightly stronger for me.
Gerry, it's been a pleasure catching up. Thanks very much for coming on.
You're welcome, Enda. Cheers. Thank you.